And to give sort of an introduction and a background, I'd first like to start talking about the William Lippert Award. And to explain what Bill Lippert does in our community, he works for the House of Representatives, and he's one of the representatives that helped create, craft, and pass the civil union law. And he has been working for the LGBTQ plus community for decades. So the Bill Lippert Award is awarded to a community leader who has advocated, celebrated, and led community effort to make life better for queer youth in Vermont. Penny Pizer, along with her husband Chuck, won this award, and they have also created a temporary house for transitioning teens called the SafeHarborForTransTeens. And so this is the first of its kind in Vermont, and it's a temporary housing for transitioning teens. And also, Penny is currently finishing her master's in counseling at JSC. Penny and Marcus Pizer, everyone.
So I took a public speaking class, but I know it's not going to be half as good as David's. So hello everyone, my name is Marcus Pizer. I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and my transition, just a little bit of background about me. So of course my transition was all a jumbled mess, and it was a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, and I'm sure as we all know that it can come out that way, or even if you're not transitioning, feelings are just absolutely insane. So I was a really sad and depressed kid who forced myself into clothes that are represented as girls' clothes. I wore dresses, I did my hair, I put on makeup, which I'm sure you all cannot imagine now looking at me. And I did all these different things, and I kept feeling, maybe I'm just not pretty enough, or that I'm just feeling weird about my body. It's nothing like being transgender. It's not what's going on. But all that wondering and confusion led to a single answer. I knew I was supposed to be a boy. I'd always ask my parents questions like, what if I were a boy, or what would you name me if I had been born a boy? Of course, at the time, I'm sure they didn't think much of it, and I didn't really think much of being transgender. And I didn't focus on anything to that extent until my sophomore year of high school. I'm currently a senior at SBHS for those of you who do not know. A couple days into my sophomore year, my brother Bobby and I weren't on good terms with my parents whatsoever. I would always be up in my room, curled up with my laptop, sitting on Tumblr and talking all to the internet friends that I had. That worried my parents at the time, and now looking back on it, I think, Jesus Christ, I must have seemed like a little mental case. But I understand the struggle that they went through, not being able to figure out what was the cause of my behavior. I had entered a foster care and stayed in the system for about 2 years before leaving in June of last year. I had to put in immense amounts of work to figure out what was going on and decided that I wanted to transition. Being in high school while transitioning doesn't necessarily turn out as pretty as you'd hope. Leading up to coming out was a huge struggle put on top of a million others. You're really trying to figure out yourself already in high school by adding in the mix of puberty, boys, girls, parties, and academics, and to top it all, hating what you see in the mirror. Wanting to see something different with your parts and your body was a recipe for pure disaster. Now don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change a single thing I have gone through. Not one single thing, because those things have made me who I am today. And I'm proud of myself for sticking through some horrible things. I went through a few foster homes, and some were good, and some I have horror stories from, now that I think are quite hilarious. But you think, why the hell did they even put me there in the first place? I eventually moved to a group home that honestly saved my life. I would not be standing up here talking to you if they hadn't helped me learn the skills I needed to survive, and also how to make some delicious pesto pasta. I've always had social skills since I was young because of my dad's job on Capitol Hill. This helped me a little bit during my time in the system, but Allenbrook taught me a lot about managing my emotions and helping my anxiety and stress, which played a huge role in my stress with family and my gender. One point I want to stress immensely is that the gender is a spectrum. You don't have to be just one thing, and this was something I didn't know. I didn't know that I could be a boy until I started looking into these issues more online. When I had really realized that I was trans, it was like a light bulb popped up above my head. Sometimes feels like a punch in the face because it's so obvious to me now. During this time of finally realizing who I was and coming out to people, I didn't want to hold it in any longer. It felt like being knocked down over and over again, and I was finally becoming me, and I lost all fear. I had never expected my parents to be so supportive of me either. I was terrified that they'd disown me or completely invalidate me. I first came out to my two best friends in the world, and they were completely fine with it. My two best friends being Lauren, who's sitting here with me today, the beautiful girl in the front, and my friend Will. I was scared because I liked Lauren quite a lot, so I was really hoping she wouldn't think I was an absolute lunatic. But they were so supportive and asked if I wanted to be called Marcus or if I wanted to go by he, him pronouns. At the time I wasn't ready, but the thought even made me excited. Then I told my therapist, then my parents, and a whole slew of other people that were on my team. Alan Brooke, my parents, family therapist, Brian, my therapist of course, were all weary at first because they had never really anticipated something like that coming out. After a lot of talking with those people, I decided that I wanted to jump forward with my transition. I wanted to cut my hair for starters, and then start coming out in the school and community. This was just the start of a long road I would have to face ahead. But I knew in my heart as I was ready and wanted nothing more than to be myself and be happy. I think the hardest part is waiting and wanting to be out and be who you are, and I know that is the worst feeling in the world to feel so stuck. Even now I still feel that way, and I don't think I will ever have a moment when I don't, but that's just a part of changing a huge part of who I am. This is one of the many reasons I wanted to start Safe Harbor for Trans Teens. I've had an extremely incredible support system throughout my transition. And there are so many people who haven't, and to know that I've been so fortunate and that the other kids in my situation haven't breaks my heart. I started talking about this idea more with my parents and how sad it is some of the kids that are forced out by their parents or guardians just because of who they are. The reality is that it's hard, and when the heartbreaking thing is that people don't support you or understand why you feel this way. Everyone deserves the right to feel happy with who they are and be able to express themselves without feeling so isolated. And that is why we started this foundation. I just want to thank everyone for listening to my I'm struggling just talking to all of you because it's just a hard speech, but I just want to thank you all for listening to it, and just applaud JSC for having such a good GSA and setting up an event like this and letting me, a completely novice speaker to David, come up here and talk to you. So I want to thank you for listening.
It doesn't come out pretty. It was a tough time in our lives, and we didn't know what to do to get help. So we knew we had to let Marcus go to have Marcus come back. And after going through this entire process of getting help with the group home, working with the Department of Child and Family Services and all the different places that we worked with, Marcus was also the first transgender youth that they dealt with. So that was a whole host of education, and it got to a point where I was saying that if the social workers can't help us, and the people who are supposed to be there to help us, that we're holding them up, there's a problem. And basically it started a whole spur of discussions, because there's the female floor, there's the male floor, there's the female bathroom, there's the male bathroom, what are we gonna do? They're still in debate. There's a panel discussion coming up. It's just turned everything possible. So we decided, and by the way, I just want to thank, guys, this is great. I passed it all over South Burlington and Burlington in big stacks. we decided to do Safe Harbor because what happens is it's a process that people need to take separately. It's not also the individuals, the parents. We're probably widely more accepting than the majority of people, but it's tough. And you go through a process. You go through, did I do something wrong? People stare at you. You go through a lot of judgment. We still do that. Marcus is much stronger with that than Mom is. But so we said if we create Safe Harbor for trans teens, that we believe if parents and kids have time to have the separation that they each need to figure things out, that the families can come back together. So right now we currently work with Department of Child and Family Services, who probably would like a target on my back, but you know, it is truly a big process. And those of you who have gone through and know what it's like, takes a lot of strength and courage. So I'm gonna be LGBTQ plus trained this summer in Rhode Island. And that's the path I'm gonna take. And I said, this is what I need to do. So thank you, Marcus. At 56, I finally know what I should be doing. So,
Not 56 yet.
Friday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wait,
what
no,
we did-
Friday.
What we found out was this article, it started out with Outright Vermont, and they wrote an article on two families, young in transition. Dana had called, you guys mind having your family come in here? And we're like, no. And if you read it, it's pretty honest. I mean, I got the good quotes. We went through hell. We're now going through puberty again with the burping and farting. You know, that was great. So just know when you talk to a reporter to say, don't quote this. So.
Yeah, really? That's a good one.
Yeah. Which also was on WCAX, some of it. So what happened was we got over 1,000 hits on Facebook and Twitter, and it became huge. It just took over this whole entire life of its own, which now has turned into, we're launching a website. I'm working with Big Picture, which is an alternative school, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, which will give resources. We're talking with the housing, the alternative housing places for kids on how are they going to handle this issue. And it's exploded. So sometimes an opportunity, Marcus, and what we went through for 2 years, which was really sad, has turned into a good thing. You know, so just remember that as you struggle sometimes, that there is, keep with it. And we're glad we're doing it, and we were going to open it up if anybody had any questions at all. So if anybody wants to ask anything, feel free.